All right, so one of the things that we do with electrochemistry and our redox reactions is we build voltaic cells, also known as galvanic cells. And a good example of these are batteries. Now, what we're showing here in this picture, this is essentially just a very rudimentary battery. And we've got two chambers that are separated by a salt bridge, and in the one chamber is a metal that is then connected via wire to a voltmeter. That's the black wire there. Then the red wire goes to the other chamber, or half cell. It's connected to another strip of metal. So basically what we do is we generate an electric current, and we do that through a redox reaction. So we take chemical energy in a redox cell and convert that to electrical energy. There are other types of electrochemical cells that we will talk about, for instance, an electrolytic cell, and those need a source of energy to drive a non-spontaneous redox reaction. But this is a spontaneous redox reaction. And that's important, okay, because that's going to help us determine some certain things like the cell potential. So the half reactions that you write in a redox reaction are what's occurring in each of these chambers. So for instance, in one chamber we have zinc solid losing electrons to form zinc ion and then 2 electrons. And in the other chamber, this will be the blue chamber, we have copper ions in solution gaining electrons to form copper solid. Okay, so this is a molecular view of what's happening with that same electrochemical cell, same galvanic cell. So here we have a zinc rod, and it's placed in the solution with zinc ions. And on the right side, we have a copper rod, and it's placed in the solution with the copper ions. Here's our half reactions. Again, we had zinc solid forming the ions and 2 electrons, and then copper ions combining with 2 electrons to form solid. Connecting these two chambers, we have a salt bridge, and this allows for migration of ions that are spectator ions. They're not taking place in the redox. They don't play a part in the redox reaction. So what you'll notice here on the left, and this is convention to write the anode on the left, is that we have our anode, and this is where oxidation is occurring. A good way to remember this is an-ox. So at the anode, we have oxidation. On the right-hand side, we have reduction, so we're gaining electrons. And a good way to remember this, so this is at the cathode, we have red cat. Okay. So oxidation occurs at the anode. Oxidation occurs at the anode. Reduction occurs at the cathode. So it's really important to understand the flow of electrons through the electrochemical cell. And the way the electrons flow, they go from the anode to the cathode. And so you'll notice that we're producing electrons in our oxidation reaction. Oxidation is loss of electrons. Those electrons are being lost. They're being drawn through the wires or through the voltmeter and being drawn towards the cathode, where they are combining now with copper ion to produce copper solid. And if we look at what's happening at the molecular level on these metal rods that are in the solution, so we'll have our zinc solid. forming ions, so those ions will enter into solution, and those 2 electrons will travel up the rod. They go small amounts, and then it kind of forces other electrons, and it's more of a sea of electrons traveling. It's not like one electron goes all the way around, but it forces this flow to happen. And then on the cathode side, so we have our copper ion combining with 2 electrons to form solid. So what we'll end up seeing is the copper ion from solution basically plating onto the copper rod. So if we ran this electrochemical cell for a very long time, what we would end up seeing is a depletion of the zinc metal. There would be, we would see noticeable loss of zinc metal on this rod, and we would see a noticeable gain of copper ion. And that's if we ran this for a very long time. So also notice what's going on with this salt bridge. So this is really just allowing for ions to migrate. And you'll notice as we put more zinc ion in solution, we have a plus charge sort of building up in the solution. And the anion in the salt bridge, in this case nitrate, is going to migrate towards the anode. In our copper half reaction, our reduction half reaction, the copper 2+ positive charge is migrating towards the metal, towards the copper rod. And we're essentially building up a negative charge, which has an electrostatic attraction for the sodium plus ion. So the cathode, or excuse me, the cations migrate toward the cathode. That's within the salt bridge. If we didn't have that salt bridge, what we would see is electrons flow momentarily from the anode to the cathode and then stop. That basically the salt bridge completes the circuit and allows for the redox reaction to take place.